Nintendo's physical history is literally rotting away inside sealed archival boxes.
Shirogumi confirmed those original Star Fox puppets were glued together with natural rubber and feathers.
We cling to these tangible artifacts, assuming the thick cardboard cartridges will last forever, but the physical reality of the characters you grew up with is actively disintegrating.
The Japanese FX company destroyed the physical models of Fox McCloud, Falco Lombardi, Peppy Hare, and Slippy Toad the minute production wrapped.
Wait, the actual puppets used for the 1993 Super Nintendo game?
The materials began decaying simply from being exposed to the ambient room air.
The ambient air, you just leave them in a room and they rot.
They dissolved.
Those exact models serve as the entire visual identity of the franchise. They were featured on the original box art, plastered across massive print ads, meticulously staged for the official strategy guides, and shipped as in-store promotional standees.
Archival deterioration feels like a distant academic concept until you experience the visceral feeling of watching your cherished childhood memories disintegrate like cheap patio furniture left out in the blazing sun.
Our mission for this deep dive into the Nintendo empire is to map out the aggressive corporate strategy replacing that rotting physical media.
Nintendo hoards its digital assets to manufacture permanent scarcity precisely because physical objects rot.
We are synthesizing Amazon Gaming Week sales data, Hollywood production rumors from industry leakers, and logistical blueprints from Universal's Epic Universe to figure out why digital scarcity and physical theme parks represent the future of these franchises.
Amazon Gaming Week cracked that digital vault open momentarily, offering a temporary 33% to 40% discount on major Switch titles.
Operating a digital storefront like a cartel hoarding diamonds is a ruthless strategy. They restrict the supply of infinite digital code to keep the perceived value astronomically high.
They maintain strict retail pricing on 5-year-old software to train consumers never to expect a bargain. This specific sale is strictly limited to digital copies.
You look at your Switch library right now, you probably realize you do not actually own most of those games in any tangible way. They grant you a license, and they charge a premium for the privilege.
Fire Emblem. Three Houses is sitting at $39.99.
You dive into tragic branching paths and a highly flexible class system where every single character's survival feels intensely paramount to the narrative.
Losing a unit in Fire Emblem causes genuine psychological distress for players because the game mechanics punish you with permanent death.
Intelligent Systems actively corrected the questionable handling of branching paths from Fire Emblem Fates when they built Three Houses.
They subverted the typical corrupted church trope by crafting a narrative where every faction is severely compromised morally.
You pick a side and deal with the brutal, irreversible ramifications of waging war against former classmates.
Contrast that immediate emotional attachment with Advance Wars 1+2, Reboot Camp, also priced at $39.99.
Those military units function as entirely expendable commodities built to be thrown into the meat grinder for minor territorial gains.
You feel literally nothing sending 10 infantry squads to their deaths just to capture a single fictional city on a grid.
Intelligent Systems develop both of these tactical franchises, yet they operate on completely opposing design philosophies. One demands deep empathy, while the other demands ruthless resource management.
Emio the Smiling Man brings a jarring, disturbing horror narrative about a serial killer wearing a paper bag over his head for $29.99.
Players constantly double-take that this is actually a Nintendo-published game.
The logical progression tools make it far superior to the opaque, frustrating mechanics of previous Famicom Detective Club titles.
You never get permanently stuck reading dialogue loops. You always possess the interface tools necessary to move the investigation forward based on actual deductive reasoning rather than random clicking.
They condition you with the psychological horror of Emio, then pivot to pure action with the Bayonetta 1 and 2 bundle for $39.98.
Platinum Games turned Bayonetta into a complex character across two games with surprisingly strong stories, where she uses a combination of magic and hair to fight off otherworldly monstrosities.
Mercury Steam took a different approach with Metroid Dread, currently discounted to $39.99.
They refined the 2D action formula they started in Metroid. Samus returns, turning Samus into an agile, lethal predator hiding from indestructible robots.
The combat philosophies diverge sharply here as well. Bayonetta relies on theatrical, campy spectacle, using literal hair magic to trigger slow-motion counterattacks against biblical angels.
Samus engages in brutal, survival-focused boss fights against parasitic aliens where precise parrying mechanics dictate whether you survive an encounter.
Square Enix's Live, Alive, rounds out the major discounts at $29.99.
Nintendo published this piece of gaming history, serving as a precursor to the multiple narrative philosophy seen in modern titles like Octopath Traveler.
Live features a stunning HD 2D grid combat system spanning 4 distinct epochs.
A prehistoric survival tale, a Wild West gunslinger narrative, a stealthy ninja infiltration, and a sci-fi story featuring a valiant little robot.
Discounting only the digital copies of these specific games feels deeply calculated.
Are they conditioning us to accept a future where we own literally nothing physically, ensuring we can never resell these games on the secondary market?
They lock down the digital distribution, kill the used game market, and then monetize those exact same properties in entirely different industries.
The V-Scooper rumor indicates a Metroid movie is currently being pitched, sparking a brutal bidding war between Sony and Universal.
Nintendo is aggressively expanding past digital storefronts to monetize its intellectual property through massive Hollywood blockbusters.
Sony manufacturing the PlayStation while simultaneously bidding to produce a movie about Nintendo's biggest sci-fi bounty hunter highlights the bizarre nature of this corporate arms race.
A Metroid film collapsed entirely in the 2000s due to extreme creative disagreements.
Former marketing manager Gail Tilden noted the friction between Nintendo's protective vision and Hollywood's demands for mass appeal.
How do you translate the brilliant, isolating silence of Metroid Dread into a loud, 2-hour studio popcorn flick without destroying the very atmosphere that makes Samus iconic?
The game relies on dread, isolation, and quiet environmental storytelling.
A movie studio wants dialogue, comedic sidekicks, massive explosive set pieces, and tie-in merchandising.
Nintendo tightened its grip significantly after that early era, producing 2 highly lucrative animated Mario movies and greenlighting an upcoming live-action Zelda film.
They demand strict control over the adaptation process because they watched the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie crash and burn spectacularly.
They spent the next 3 decades building an impenetrable fortress around their characters.
If a studio wants the rights to Samus Aran, they play by Nintendo's rules down to the smallest detail.
Universal already proved they can handle Nintendo's strict guidelines by building an entire theme park infrastructure around their franchises.
Minecart Madness, shutting down completely for a one-day refurbishment on Saturday, May 3, reveals the physical and logistical nightmares of housing these properties at Epic Universe.
Universal might be fighting for the Metroid movie rights, but they are simultaneously battling the friction of real-world physics.
The highly praised Donkey Kong Family Coaster mimics video game physics by appearing to jump across massive gaps in the track.
We have to explain how they achieve that jumping effect because it is a mechanical marvel.
The main cart you sit in rolls along a fake track, but it is actually attached to a massive robotic arm connected to a hidden track beneath you.
When the fake track breaks away, the hidden boom arm holds the cart in midair, creating the illusion of jumping a chasm.
Park logistics sounds like a sterile spreadsheet problem until you experience the visceral feeling of spending thousands of dollars on a dream family vacation, only to find yourself trapped in a grueling 2-hour line in the sweltering Florida humidity because that fake minecart broke.
You cannot program a physical roller coaster to ignore friction, heat, mechanical failure, and unpredictable software glitches the way you program a digital sprite.
10 remaining rides must absorb the massive traffic of a closed blockbuster attraction.
The coaster wait times regularly hover between 1 and 2 hours, establishing it as one of the most intense bottlenecks in the entire park.
The layout physically requires guests to pass through themed portals into distinct franchise environments.
Super Nintendo World, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, How to Train Your Dragon, and Dark Universe operate as isolated ecosystems with limited entry points.
When the primary draw of the Donkey Kong expansion shuts down, that isolated ecosystem breaks.
The displaced crowds flood the rest of the park seeking alternatives.
Hiccup's Wing Gliders serves as the closest substitute for guests who specifically wanted a family coaster experience, guaranteeing those specific wait times will spike dramatically.
The weather variable completely changes the operational equation in early May.
Rain in Central Florida forces outdoor attractions to shut down entirely for safety reasons.
Constellation Carousel, Dragon Racers Rally, Fire Drill, and Yoshi's Adventure all cease operations the moment lightning is detected within a certain radius.
Every single park guest is then forced into just 4 major indoor rides.
Battle at the Ministry, Mario Kart, Monsters Unchained, and Villain Con Minion Blast.
The physical infrastructure buckles under that sudden shift in human density.
Universal implemented photo validation at the portals to manage this exact type of chaos. They use facial recognition cameras to process virtual lines without tickets or phones.
The algorithm acts like a network router managing data packets on a server.
Instead of letting server traffic pile up and crash the system at a single bottleneck, the facial recognition system dynamically routes human traffic away from overwhelmed areas and into open capacity slots across the park.
Scanning guests dynamically eliminates physical queue lines forming outside the portals.
The system activates specifically when virtual line return times are in use, processing crowds algorithmically as attendance scales up toward maximum capacity levels.
It tracks your biometric signature from the moment you enter the park to predict where you will go next.
Surviving this system requires playing a brutally unfair pay-to-win video game in real life.
You arrive before dawn, purchase incredibly expensive express passes, map out your entire morning around the indoor attractions, and surrender your biometric data.
You hand over your face just to access the content you already paid for.
If your trip has flexibility, you shift your entire Epic Universe visit to Sunday, May 4th, when the ride reopens.
Physical media is designed to rot. Digital media can be revoked or kept artificially expensive at a moment's notice. And physical theme park spaces are subject to mechanical failure and severe weather disruptions.
We hand over our digital dollars for the illusion of ownership, and then we physically travel across the country to hand over our literal faces to a corporate database.
If physical preservation is impossible and digital ownership is a cartel-run illusion, our theme park's the final boss of nostalgia. We surrender our biometric facial data just to stand in the rain for a simulated Mario Kart race. Enjoy your vacation.